Thank you so much for that. Before we begin the official recording, I just want to give everyone a heads up to say I do have slide numbers in the bottom right corner. If you're not comfortable being recorded and asking any questions, feel free to wait till the end when we stop recording and you can bring up any of those questions you have outside that session. Otherwise, we will begin recording shortly, and you can feel free to still interrupt me if you're comfortable with that being recorded and asking questions. If you have questions you want to ask and not unmute, feel free to drop questions in the chat. We have other members of my team here who will jump in and try to answer those while I'm chatting, or bring them to my attention if there's something that I can make clear along the way. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Jennifer, if you'd like to start the recording.
It already started.
Oh, never mind then. We're all good then. I didn't see the warning pop up. We'll probably cut it off right here. Thank you all for coming. We're really excited to partner with the ASCCC in this endeavor because we've worked a lot in California through the years. We're familiar with the people and the students and the institutions, and we really love the passion that the community colleges in California have for their students. I've been with LibreTexts formally for a year and a half. My name is Justin Shorb, and I lead up our curriculum innovation and development arms. And a little bit more about me. I am a mathematician and chemist by training, and I was a professor at multiple institutions throughout the years. And my PhD was largely in how to design online textbooks for chemistry using multimedia. So even back in graduate school, I was working with a online wiki textbook, which is now in LibreText. So that was decades ago. And I was brought back a year and a half ago to continue my work because of my background in digital resources, digital libraries, and I now spearhead the online LibreTexts Academy with in-person and virtual trainings in our academy online. As I mentioned, I'm a chemist, mathematician, and I do physical chemistry as well. And I lead up the connections offer. So I did put my email there, but I'm going to give you a lot of other opportunities for you to find support throughout this talk. I just like to give people a background so they know what I've done, where I've been. So I like to kind of just say, I know what it's like to be in a classroom and try to reduce the cost for students, and to think about what digital education means for them. So before we begin, get a little metacognitive. I want you to think for just a minute about what creates an effective learning environment in your classroom. I'm going to give you just a second to think about that. So think about effective learning environments and what is the key pieces that make your learning experience for your students better. All right. If you have a piece of paper in front of you or a keyboard, I really do think it's helpful to write something down or to list something down just for your own purposes. It's nice to write down something that you appreciate that a student does in your class. So internally, you can also think about things that you would prefer not, but I think it's positive to write down something that you appreciate happens in your classroom as we get started. Because one of the things I like to start off these webinars with is a reminder that you guys are currently not sitting in a meeting. You are sitting in a learning environment. And I like to emulate that as much as possible, and remind you of your role as a learner in a learning environment and to emulate some good teaching strategies. Okay, so once you have that, keep that in the back of your mind while we're going through this, the ways that you can participate. Yes, and someone mentioned in the chat, participation is usually a big key thing. So hopefully I spurred you on to participating here today. I want to talk about what traditional publishers have provided, and then we'll talk about how LibreText fits into this to help you to reduce the cost for your students. Obviously, content is the big one. We have textbooks. They have textbooks. They have great textbooks, oftentimes really nice and polished. They have question banks and interactives and answer materials that can help you in your classrooms. That's something that many people think about OER right off the bat. OER, in order to be a replacement for digital, for-profit publisher models, will have to have good content. But in addition to that, for-profit publishers will often provide homework systems, technologies, engagement software. They might have things to help you deal with accessibility in your class, although oftentimes they don't. And they also provide some sort of development. So they might have a first edition, bring in new authors, come out with a second edition, a 20th edition. How many editions do you need? Maybe they keep changing the chapters numbers. So development can be a positive and it can also be a negative depending on what you're looking at. Many people assume that they are peer reviewed. Oftentimes they are not. Sometimes they're just reviewed by their best friends. I know only the stories in science. I don't know the stories in your own fields. Uh, and in terms of training and support, usually for-profit publishers will help you out with having a sales rep. And that's pretty much the end of the training and the support they might have. And they rarely will help you with integration of non-publisher materials into your class. So if you want to try to incorporate those in there. So that's kind of giving you an idea of like what things do provide. But I don't want to sell it too much short. I do want to acknowledge that there is a lot of hurdles to joining into a ZTC program and reducing the cost for your students. So if you can in the chat, I'd love to just get a feel for who's in the chat or who's in the room. There's a lot of you, so this is going to be exciting. If you engage mostly on a day-to-day basis, are you mostly engaged with content delivery to students? Are you mostly involved with the technology behind the scenes? Are you mostly involved in curriculum development, innovation, instructional design, that kind of development work, iteratively improving things? Or are you mostly involved in training and support, administrative staff, things like that on your campuses? I just love to see this scroll through. And then for you to get a feeling for that you're not alone here. Everyone belongs with LibreTexts. Everyone has a role to play. And I just love to see all the different types of people that are working with us. I'll give you a moment too to scroll through and just see who all is here. Yes, Alex. I think a lot of us tick many of these boxes. Hopefully you're not doing all four of them on a day-to-day basis. Excellent. So hopefully nobody feels alone in this. You'll find that LibreTexts cares a lot about the community that is involved with it. So while you're thinking about those day-to-day things, the things that you're working with on a day-to-day basis, what are the main pain points that you have when your process of helping out to make the education better? And what things you might rely on a publisher for? Or if you are all in for OER and you're feeling great and awesome about it, maybe think about the things you've heard other people say in your community that they can't go OER because of something. And you don't have to type those in the chat, but feel free to think about those. And then I like to have them in the back of your mind while we move on to thinking about what we're doing. And I like to always remind everybody that the goal that we have, especially with community college faculty, is making these things better for students, right? We really want to keep students at the central. What helps us to help students the most? All right. Also in the chat, this is another one that I have for my content people. If you're a content person, I'm interested to hear in the chat whether you're hoping to be more of an adopter of OER. I want to find an OER book that will work for my classroom. That's what I want to do, as off the shelf as possible. Or are you identifying as mostly someone who would like to author their own book or has their own book and would love to find a nice, accessible place for that to live? Or if you're in the middle somewhere, there's nothing wrong with being in the middle. That's where most of us land. This is excellent. Thank you guys so much for participating. It makes it much more engaging for me to virtually be able to see what kind of people are in the room with me while I'm talking. So I got a feel for who you are. I wanted to introduce you to our team. So our team starts off with Delmar Larson, who is or was on the call. Maybe will be on the call again. He was having some troubles with his internet. And he is at University of California, Davis as a chemistry professor, but he's very well known, especially in California, for being a strong proponent and advocate for OER in the classroom, and founded LibreTexts many years ago. Very early on in his career, he met Joshua Halpern, who is a professor of chemistry as well, emeritus from Howard University, who operates as our CIO. And Jennifer Rogers, who's on the call manning the chat. She is a former academic librarian who is passionate about making access to people, having access for people to quality materials has always been a driving force for her, and making it affordable is really, really part of her goal. I joined the team, I said, a year and a half ago, but I've been working in the academic field along the sides with LibreTexts for a while, and I'm the director of curriculum and development and innovation alongside my partner, Benny, who's our mascot. He wants to show you all the benefits of using LibreTexts. There are a lot of magic makers behind the scene, but one of the things I like to say here is there are 4 people. So many people think that there's a huge, massive team behind this very, very large project. There are 4 people who are working hard and being very passionate about spreading the news. We have no sales team. We have no marketing team. We do not have an army of people who are going to be reaching out and trying to do things for you. We're going to be doing our best to get the trap of that. And we are really coming together with a really strong platform for being able to do this with you. But that's because we're passionate about what we do. And we have a ton of people who are great supporters and advocates on the campuses. So we play a large role because you guys play a large role. And that's what the community of LibreTexts is all about. Great. So giving back to the beginning here, and talking about what LibreTexts is and where we're at right now. So I mentioned Delmar Larson. He's a chemist. This originally started as the UC Davis Chem Wiki around 15 years ago or so. And that chemistry wiki still exists. It has become the chemistry library at LibreTexts. And a lot of people did adopt it in the chemistry community, but we've came up against those pain points that I had you think about earlier. What are the pain points of adopting an OER textbook? Well, it's because textbooks from a publisher are more than just content. That only covers one aspect of being able to adopt a textbook in your course for many, many courses. Because it's more than textbooks, replacing a for-publisher model requires us to do more than just have quality textbooks. So you'll see that LibreTexts has expanded to become not only 16 libraries of content, but also homework systems, training systems, publishing systems, mechanisms for doing computer science and interactives and H5P. All of these things are available all within the single platform that we call LibreTexts. And that's why we say this is the LibreVerse. It is more than just text. It's the LibreVerse. And then we're going to launch right into that. And that's why you'll see this little launch icon in the corner. That's our rocket ship. If you ever want to see what LibreTexts has from any LibreTexts site, you can look for a rocket ship. If you click that, it'll bring you to this page to show you all of the things that LibreTexts has. Great. So if you're familiar with LibreTexts, but it's been a few years, I like to give just a couple slides real quick to show you how fast LibreTexts has changed from what you may have a picture in your mind. So we started off with a Libre One single sign-on user. You might have remembered you had to log in separately for every single one of our libraries, and our homework system was separate. Everything was separate. In 2023, we brought everything together with one login, single sign-on, and we brought the Studio, the Jupyter, every single platform we have together with just that launch pad there. In 2024, we brought me on board. We got the Jupyter Hub up and running from our old servers to our new servers. If you're familiar with what Jupyter is, I don't need to explain what it is. If you're not familiar, just know that it's computer science and data science related. We launched the support center. We acquired the antecedent software, which has become the Forge, which I'll explain more. And we really expanded the Adapt homework system with the help of the college, the California Education and Learning Lab, which is why California gets that for free, because they help support the expanded growth of the Adapt homework system. So all of that happened in 1 year. And in 2025, we had a chance to regroup, refocus what we're doing, come up with a strategic plan for both our technology and our steering committee. And we launched that in 2025. And we culminated the last part of that year with our strategic goals of building sustained and interconnected LibreVerse, developing and launching the LibreTexts Academy, which is what I lead up, strengthening our community partnerships, especially the ones in California, and building a sustainable and transparent model for how we move forward. And that started off 2025. And in 2025, we did build that academy, and we did build a lot more things that our community wanted, such as website analytics for your textbooks, I have 2 slides to show those. And we did the big partnership that brings me here today, which is the Open Education Resources Initiative. We announced in October 25 that we were selected as the single OER platform for not the single, but the main partner to build the OER platform for the community colleges of California. This coincides with the need this coming year for the Department of Justice ruling on accessibility, making sure that we can help you all get up to speed with that. Advanced support for analytics, accessibility reviews, administration for stakeholders, and then in continued training and support. Taking a small breath there for a second to just say, I think some people might be a little surprised at how much has happened if you only heard about LibreTexts 2 years ago, or if you heard about them before that and you thought they were textbooks. We are textbooks, but we are now a lot more than that. And that gives you the power to do what we're going to be doing today. So our getting started is always starting with that launch pad. So if you happen to be following around or just playing around online, you can click on that rocket ship. That'll bring you to this page. This has all of our services on the top, which are our platforms that are non-textbooks. And then on the bottom is all of our libraries, which is where our textbooks are residing. And along with all of those resources, I just wanted to make sure that you guys all know what this consortium membership for all of the community colleges in California means. It means that you have unlimited publishing of customized OER textbooks. You don't need to pay, your campus does not need to pay for a platform for publishing or for hosting textbooks. You have an unlimited number of customized textbooks you can put onto our platform. We have sustainable hosting of OER materials such as textbooks, like I mentioned, images, files, ancillary materials, and assets that you can have asset collections and accompanying those books or not accompanying books, homework questions, H5P interactives. All of these things are completely free within your membership of the LibreTexts consortium. We do have accessibility checklists, so you don't have to have a separate tool for that. We have support and accessibility first platform. All of our materials have been designed to be accessible by First Design because we were grant built. We were not built for profit. We were built by grants from government agencies that required us to care about accessibility. You have 4,000 textbooks that are over 4,000 textbooks that you can remix in any way you want to and customize, build your own, and you can have access to over 300,000 questions in our homework system that is free for you and your students to use for the foreseeable future. And I did mention not Chad, you changed your name. John mentioned that you do have access this first year to our Forge as well for free for your students, and I'll give you some highlights to what that would be. When you're logged into LibreTexts, you have to be a verified instructor. I want to make sure I say that. There are some things you won't be able to see unless you are a verified instructor. We will walk you through how to do that. So if you don't have one, I will tell you where to go later and how to access those things. During our break, I'll give you guys a chance if you need to go ahead and do that. To do that, we will get you verified today if you don't have a verified account. So when you log in, if you look in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, you will see either your name and an email address, or you'll see your name with an email address and this green verified instructor next to it. That means that's how you can check to see if you have a verified account or not. Also, if you're not verified, when you're on that launch pad, you'll see this big orange thing that says verify your instructor status. So it's pretty obvious if you're a verified instructor or not. If not, then you can go ahead and do that. But sneak peek for now, just letting you know, if you don't see what I see, it's because you're probably not a verified instructor, and we will get you that done by the end of the day. It's free. Okay, although I said we're more than textbooks, a lot of you are here for textbooks. So I'm going to talk about textbooks first. We do have 16 libraries. I like to talk about the main ones that you're going to see. The three that I have highlighted there are language libraries. So there's the Espanol library, the global library, and the Ukrainian library. These are the language libraries, and I want to emphasize the fact that the language libraries are not where you go to teach Spanish. So English learner acquisition of other languages is located in the humanities library. It's not located in the Spanish library. The Spanish library, as you can see on the left, is actually a bunch of other libraries that are in Spanish. So we have a lot of translation efforts that are ongoing to translate our books that can be useful by students across the world. By the way, federal and state grants don't pay for non-English learners in order to get these cool translation books. So 2026 is our year of donations for translations. So if you're just curious about that or you're passionate about education in other languages, just letting you know that's one thing that we're doing. But note that ESL and all of our language acquisitions are all in the humanities library. For the other libraries, we have them broken up by basically content growth and where those growth were. And some of them are kept to be quite large on purpose, and I'll show you some numbers later. They all started at the chemistry library. We were the ChemWiki, then we were the STEMWiki, and now we're the LibreTexts. Each of those libraries will be broken into 3 different areas if they have all 3 areas. Not all libraries have learning objects. If you're looking for a book and you want a book about your topic, you will go to the bookshelf. That is our general access, general purpose bookshelf. It's what you would get from a traditional publisher. It could be used by anyone. They have traditional topics. They're the ones that you would normally think of as being generic across the country curriculum books. If you are looking for ancillary materials that are textbook-like, meaning they could get printed out in paper, those would be in your learning objects. Think of case studies or modules on a specific topic, or in the sciences laboratories. Those sorts of things will be in our learning objects area. They are essentially things that could accompany any textbook. Depending on how the curriculum is working, they could be accompanying any different textbook because they're more based on the topic or the skill than they are the order of the pedagogy. I will also point out that many of the libraries like statistics and physics will have a lot of interactives that are in the learning objects. So if you wanted to have an interactive that teaches something like a PhET simulation or something like that, those are all located in the learning objects area. If you want to take things from the bookshelf and you want to take some of the stuff that you like, or you're going to write your own, and you want to take some learning object and you want to build a course that is specific to your syllabus, then that would be the campus bookshelf. So if someone publishes a book that is a mix of other things or a remix of other things, then that would be in the campus bookshelf. And the campus bookshelf will be by campus. So there will be each of your campuses will be in there and your book will get published to that campus. So Contra Costa Community College, for instance, or Irvine Valley College, those will each have their own campus bookshelf. And we'll talk about what that means in a little bit. There is a hidden part of LibreTexts libraries, which is where our unpublished work goes. You work on an unpublished book, you don't have to worry about where it's going to go in the end. You just work on your book, you remix your book, you take whatever you want, and it's hidden from view. And then when you're ready to publish it, you'll click the publishing button and it will move it into one of those three areas. Whether you wrote a book that's commonly used by anybody, or it's specific to your syllabus, or it's some sort of a learning object thing that, or a laboratory manual that it might go into the learning objects. There is actually no difference in LibreTexts as to how you work with a book that's published or how you work with a book that's unpublished. Once it's published, you can still edit it, you can still modify it, you can still add new pages to it. The only difference is whether it's public or not, and you'll be able to see if it's not. And I'll show you with the very obvious points, but the big one is it'll say it's in the workbench at the top. By the way, I didn't mention this before, but if you click on that login into a library, the library will either have a black bar or a blue bar. If you see a blue bar, that means you're an unverified instructor. You don't have any privileges to edit anything on that library whatsoever. If it's black, then that you have editing privileges to certain areas, usually just your books. How do you go about looking at these or finding them or building them? The finding is going to be the first thing that we talk about. I want to emphasize there are two services that are on our Launchpad that are called the Commons and the Conductor. I want you to think of these as the front of the house for a restaurant and the back of the house for a restaurant. The Commons is where we serve the books. You search the Commons. You look at the card catalog in the Commons. You find your metadata in the Commons. You find what the license is and all that information. You download the PDFs. Those are all in the Commons. If you want to write a book, build a book, remix a book, if you want to make a book or upload some files for people, that'll all be done in the Conductor. Conductor is our project management system. It's where you analyze, build, create, and author. And once those are done, you view them in the Commons. The Commons is public. The Conductor is for verified instructors only to build things. So those are really two halves of the same coin. One's just a back end, back of the house. One is the front of the house. So we'll start off with the front of the house to let you see how you find things. So the Commons is basically just a card catalog. You search for things. You can search for different books. You can search for assets. You can search for repositories, so mini repositories. Think of those as collections of assets that don't have a book. So they might just be a collection of worksheets or a collection of audio files or a collection of something. Those would just be collections of files. And you can filter those based on what you're looking for. I'm going to do a little example. Here's an example. We do have over 3,400 books as of the screenshot that I took this day. And you can filter those by the library that they're in or what subject. You can filter them by location. This is helpful because remember, I said that there are remix books for campuses, and then there are just bookshelf books. Oftentimes, you don't want to remix from someone else's remix. You just want to find books that are in the bookshelf. So the location will allow you to search for things that are just in that central bookshelf. And then in the assets, we have almost 4,000 assets. You can do file types. So if you're looking for PowerPoints or you're looking for images, you can do some searches that way too. This is a very, very versatile search function. Here's an example of some of those mini repositories that I mentioned. This is a whole bunch of worksheets for spectroscopy, because spectroscopy could be taught in any different course in chemistry, for instance. If you are interested and you are someone on your campus that is more on the admin side of things and you need to make some marketing materials, we do have a LibreNet member marketing kit This is where you can find our branding guidelines and our logos and our cute little bennies that you can use to put on your little emails and things like that. So we have our own collection, and we do have some English as a second language acquisition library from IVC that's in there. I don't know how many repos we have right now, but this is our most recent thing we just built because of the needs that were expressed to us, and they're growing quite rapidly. If you were to click on a book, however, so this is no longer an asset. If you click on a book, then you'll see what library it's in, who the author is, what college they were at, and you'll be able to get a page-by-page breakdown of what these OER licenses are. So it keeps track of all of your metadata for you, and you can see what licenses are available for that. In addition to those licenses, this is also where you can jump straight to the Conductor project, where you can work on the book if it's your book. You can submit an adoption report. We do appreciate it if you tell us that you've adopted a book and how much money you're saving your students, because it helps us to say, hey, LibreTexts is saving millions of dollars a year. We know we are, but if we don't have any data to support that, then it's difficult for us to report those numbers. And you can, if you are using someone's book, you could submit a peer review to it, and the authors have access to go look at that. We don't tell people to go look at it or anything like that. They just get notified that there is a peer review. Obviously, you can read the book online, and you can download a PDF of it. You can also purchase a print copy, and I'll talk a little bit about the low cost for not-for-profit costs that we have for those. And then the one that people are really interested in is at the bottom. You can download an LMS file. This is a course cartridge file, which allows you to upload your book into your Canvas, and it will just show up as pages in your Canvas, so students don't even need to know they're going to LibreTexts. It'll just be embedded right into their Canvas instance. So all of those can be done just from that Commons without even going to look at the book at all. I mentioned our bookstore. It's new and improved. We have a lot of really great tools that you can use there. This is something that's probably more for my bookstore friends on the call that might need to order a bunch of them, or for my student support centers that are on the call. If you need to get a print copy for a whole bunch of different classes that you have, we have a nice cart you can add them all in there and then ship them all at once. To give you an idea of the costs, the book here I have on the screen is 153 pages. Paperback, black and white, and it costs $8.30. We are a very, very, very low cost system because we don't have a warehouse. We don't have anybody who ships these things. We work with a printing house that will print them as they get ordered, print them off, put them in a thing, and then mail them to you. Which I want to just point out that means that if you ask for 2-day delivery on our bookstore, that is 2 days after it gets done being printed, because it gets printed the moment you ask for it. So then it might take a day or two to get through the printer's offices to get to the shipping, and then you'll get 2-day shipping after that. So just keep that in mind if you need to have deadlines. 2-day shipping is how long it takes to ship, not how long it takes to print. And the printing is kind of depends on the time of year, how fast that's going to be. We don't do the printing. We partner with a California printer, actually. So we try to keep things in the state of California. Don't confuse this with our swag store. We do have a swag store if you want cool, awesome t-shirts. We just love to have people get excited about working with us, and a lot of people have asked us for that, so we like to throw that out there. Also, being part of the LibreNet consortium means that you do have a landing page where all of your books and resources that come out about from this process will be centrally hosted, so you can see all of the books across all the OERI school system platform participators. And those books will all get published into this repository as a campus commons. It's a campus commons. Some of you may be familiar, have your own campus commons from prior before that. At this point, California community colleges will also have this big, huge one for all the campuses together. And then you'll still be able to maintain your own campus commons if you already have one of those, or if you're a LibreNet member in some other capacity. So this is what allows you to have as many books as you want. And consortium members also enjoy priority support for whatever you need. You are joining a very large group of schools. So on the screen there, any of those red dots are LibreTexts Consortium membership schools that are already part of our membership. All the schools in Illinois, all Florida International Virtual Campus is for all those virtual campus is all part of the LibreNet Consortium. And California just joined this year for all the community colleges. But you'll see we're scattered all across the US and Canada. The schools that are in blue are schools that have published a book on LibreTexts, either a remix or a full book. And that just gives you an idea of how nationally recognized and powerful of a community LibreTexts really brings you. Okay, now let's regroup. We talked about books. Hopefully that got you a little bit of a taste for it. We'll talk a little bit more about how to do authoring a little bit later, but I just want to say we're going to go and dive into some of those other pain points you might be familiar with. So we mentioned textbooks. So we've only talked about one of my 4 sections so far. So imagine how many fun things we're going to be talking about in the near future. But I want to prepare you. This is an overview. So I'm going to touch on the things so you know what we have. I would highly recommend that you jot down notes for yourself to say, I want to remember that LibreTexts has this. So when I go later to build my course or think about my curriculum, don't forget, I already have this for free from LibreTexts. I don't need to do this paid version of it somewhere else. So let's talk a little bit about what else we have. So that's the top part that's not the textbooks. The LibreVerse is what we call it on the top. And we're going to walk through just which of these things are and what they are and give you some screenshots to see what they look like. The first one that everyone cares a lot about, because they should care a lot about assessment, is our assessment engine, which is Adapt. So the LibreVerse assessment is primarily centered around Adapt, which is our homework system. There's over 300,000 open questions in the QBank. I will emphasize to you that even if you don't use our Adapt system for your assessment in your class, you may still use our question bank to find questions. It is an OER resource just like any OER book. So if you're just curious to see what other ways you could assess different topics, feel free to use it as a library, a resource for you. That's one of the powers of OER. I will mention right now that the reason that we have a verified instructor process is because those 4 people you saw on the beginning of this slideshow presentation are the 4 people who check to make sure every single account is an actual instructor before we verify them. It's not farmed out. Nobody does it automatic. So when you type in that bio URL that it asks for, which we'll talk about later, we go to that website, we find your name, we find your email address, we make sure that you are an instructor before we ever give you any access to these things. So these questions are secure. We do a lot of the things that other campus LMSs can do. Source and subordinate courses, you might have heard them as alpha beta courses or master courses and other courses. Basically the type of thing where a course coordinator might have a bunch of adjunct faculty who are all administering different sections of the same course. That's able to be done in Adapt. We do have a lot of question types. I'm going to jump down to the bottom of the slide here. If you're familiar with WebWork or iMathAS, which is the technology behind MyOpenMath, both of those are very good algorithmic question open source technologies. Those are inside of Adapt. So Adapt is an umbrella that has these technologies underneath its hood. So if you have iMathAS questions or you have WebWork questions in a library, you can bring them into Adapt and give them to your students along with anything else. Our H5P library also is a great resource. And that one can also be brought into Adapt as well, so you can have H5P questions in there. The nice thing about Adapt is all these different question types can be delivered to a student in one single homework set with no knowledge on their behalf of what type of assessment engine you're using. So if you want to use a powerful algorithmic one like WebWork, do it. But that doesn't keep you from also using H5P, from also using our other type of technologies that we have all within one homework set, and the students don't have anything else. One of the things you'll hear me say over and over again is let's try to reduce the cognitive load for our students as much as possible. One login, one place to go to find their textbook, one place that has the same exact tool in your Canvas to go access their homework. And that makes things a lot easier. One reason why this can be powerful is with our learning trees. So learning trees is where Adapt gets its name. What it happens is that you have a question at the top of the tree here, the trunk. That's blue. Blue means it's a question, and that question could be a more complicated question. So think about something that requires students to do 3 or 4 steps to get to the right answer. Oftentimes, you wouldn't assign homework like that because automatic grading questions are not always great for assessing whether or not students can do complicated questions. But you still would like them to do complicated questions, right? So if you give them a complicated question, a learning tree allows you to then provide them, if they get it wrong, with a strategy map, where you say, hey, this question is difficult. It requires you to do all 4 of these different skills. Do you know how to do all 4 of these skills? Before you get to try this question again, I'm going to require you to try out one of those 4 things and learn a little bit more about it. So it forces the student to be a little bit more reflective and metacognitive about what they're doing. So they don't get a second try, they earn a second try, or a third try, or a 4th try. So a student presented with a strategy map, and these brown boxes here are trainings. where they could get a text training or a video training on different skills. And then the bottom of that branch goes to another blue question. So another question from Adapt, a simpler question, one that only maybe assesses one skill. And if they get that one right, then they earn the ability to go redo that top question over again. And then the branch on the far right-hand side you see here, that's 2 practice questions. So this branch isn't, I'm not going to teach you anything else, but I'm going to let you practice twice. So if you do these practice questions, these 2 practice questions, you've earned to try to do that more complicated question again. So this is a learning tree. This is where we get the name ADAPT, because we want to think about adaptive learning and adapting to students' metacognition. Any question that we have can be put into a adapt learning tree. Very powerful. They do take a little time to make, though. We, of course, have LTI and API access that was mentioned earlier, which means that your gradebook syncs back to Canvas automatically. Your assignments are linked within there, and students access their adapt homework straight through your Canvas instance or whatever LMS you're using. I mentioned before, this is accessible by initial design because it was paid for with federal and state funds. So we have a very fully accessible platform, and we can talk more about that, or you can watch some of our videos on more of the in-depth parts of that. We have a ton of different content types because we're not just web work, we're not just iMathAS, we're not just H5P, we're also our own homework system. So anytime we partner with a new faculty member who has a great idea for a new type of question, we can bring those in there. So we've built in discussion framework. I'm going to jump forward to that. People who may be familiar with VoiceThread or some other threaded conversation topic questions, we've now put that in there in the last year. It's called Discuss It. So this is an asynchronous threaded text, audio, and video conversation assignment. So students can be given prompts to interact with each other. They can start threads and reply to threads either with text, with audio, or with video. This is very heavily used by our American Sign Language instructors because they can use video to have people interact. And our foreign language was designed, built originally by a group of Spanish faculty in California at Chabot College. And other instances too, but we like to give credit to Christina Moon where we can. And it also has transcripts, so automatically generated transcripts in whatever language you want. So if you say, I want all my videos transcribed in Spanish, it will do that. If you want it transcribed in French, they will do that. Spanish and French and ASL are our 2 largest users, but it's growing rapidly for automatic grading of participation in online discussions. So that's something that we've built in as our native part of ADAPT. We also have molecular structure questions. It's called Sketcher. If you are a chemist, then you might be familiar with MolView. MolView is a technology that does 2D to 3D visualizations. We partnered with MolView, and our Sketcher native homework assignments in chemistry were designed with the MolView people. And then I'll talk a lot about long form writing later as part of the Forge. The Forge also links its gradebook straight through ADAPT as well. We do alignments to frameworks, so you can say which questions are testing which parts of your frameworks. And of course, this is an OER resource, so you can use these questions and customize them and remix them as you want. That's a lot of time on one slide, isn't it? But it's a powerful slide. That is our ADAPT question, and I can take some questions later on, but I want to make sure I get through as much as I can. If you're, like I mentioned earlier, if you're familiar with Jupyter, then you know Jupyter. If you don't know what it is, you probably don't need to know what it is. It's one of those fairly ubiquitous in the areas that it is used. It is a online notebook for writing code in Python or Java, and you can write data analysis problems, and you can interact with your instructor. We do have Jupyter Hub, which is our notebook server. That is a very common thing that you would use in a computer science or a data science course or statistics. But we also have Jupyter as a binder into our books as well. So what you see on the screen here is actually a textbook in statistics that has embedded code blocks, which allows students to run code to actually engage with the statistics that they're doing. So you can see here that's box plots at the top, then histograms. Then they're just setting up the table to view a table. And then in the bottom, there's a stem and leaf plot. What does this look like? Well, a student will click on that run button to say, I would like to run this histogram code with 20 breaks, and it will pop up on their page that histogram. Then you can instruct the students in your textbook to change the number of breaks to 10 to 30, maybe down to 5 to see how the histogram changes. And then they can click rerun or restart and run all, or they can just run it over again and it will change the image. So it gives you an interactive plotting as the use of code. I mentioned for interactives, we also have a whole H5P authoring and database. So that's our studio. Our studio has a bunch of H5P already available for you to search, find, and use. Either if it's an assessment tool, you can put it into an adapt homework system, or you can use it formatively in your classroom just by linking to it, or you can embed it in your textbook as well. All those tools are available and you can build things there. It is an OER library. And if you do have your own H5P, we do allow you to upload them as long as you're, releasing them with an OER license of some sort. If you have questions about accessibility, a lot of people do. Generally, H5P is not considered to be an accessible technology. We do have a site online that does help you figure out which H5P types are accessible, which are not. They're getting to be more and more as time goes on, but they're generally not accessible. And I would also mention that don't use H5P for any high stakes assessments in your classroom because they are not secure. They are graded on the student's computer. So any student who knows how to right click and look at the source of a file, they can find the answer to an H5P question. Whereas every other technology I've mentioned sends their answer to our servers and then we grade it and send it back. So they can't see the answer. Just to give you that highlight, we tend to not encourage the use of H5P for those reasons. And because we have so many other awesome technologies, why use one that has that security issue? But if you do have questions, I wanted to mention the connections. This is our new forum that just launched last week. It's to take advantage of the community of people that we have that are using these resources to ask questions, to get answers, and to see other people's questions and what they've gotten answers on. And we've preloaded it with a bunch of H5P questions and accessibility questions already. So if you have a question, it might already be answered there, and it will direct you to where those resources might be as well. Next assessment tool that we have is the Forge. This is the one that we mentioned you also get access to use for free this first academic year. So I believe that's the fall into the spring upcoming. So the Forge is a writing analytics. It can be other things, but we're primarily focused on writing analytics right now. What it looks like to a student is just a prompt and then a Word document. It looks like a Google Doc kind of a thing. They write their assignment in there, and then you get some feedback both on what they write and how they write and such things. What the goal of this is really to focus on the writing process over the product. So this is kind of to fight against generative AI use a little bit, or maybe not fight against, but to embrace it in a pedagogical manner that helps your students to interact with it in a way that you would like them to. And it's for long form assignments. So think of it as things that are due a first draft, a second draft, and a final draft. It's not a homework assignment that you would just write a paragraph and get done with it. That's not really what it's designed for. So let me give you an example of what this technology does for you as an instructor. So this student on the left, in the upper left-hand corner, it starts off at word count 0 and time 0. And then to the bottom right corner, this is the due date for the assignment when it got turned in. And then it's also the very last word of the essay. So you can see generally you move from the upper left corner to the bottom right corner because you start with word 0 and you end with your last word. That's typically how you write an essay. So as students move along, you can see these blue dots. We don't do any keyboard tracking or anything like that. It's just a snapshot every 30 seconds of what words have been edited and modified. So there's not security issues. But every 30 seconds, it takes a snapshot and sees how many words were added. So you can see it typed, they typed, they typed, they typed. Then the big green chunk says they copied and pasted a lot during this 30 seconds. Then the next 30 seconds, they copied and pasted a lot. They copied and pasted a lot. Then this blue line says they wrote a bunch, and then the red circle means they deleted a bunch all at once, and then the huge green circle means they copied and pasted a lot. So you can see this student basically went through, copied and pasted a bunch, and wrote little bitty connector paragraphs. And at the very end, before the final draft was due, you see these little blue specks throughout the whole essay. That means they did some copy editing right before they turned it in. No real revision, just some copy editing. So that's one thing you can see from that student. I'm going to zoom in on this other student. This student here, predominantly blue lines going down at an angle, which means this student was writing at a regular rate. You can see right here, they did use a red circle to delete a little bit and then keep writing. You can see some blue speckles along the way that says at this paragraph, they went back, revised their essay, and then rewrote that paragraph that they just wrote. And then they wrote some more. And then halfway through the term of this assignment, I think they probably turned in a draft to their professor and got some feedback and then went back to the beginning of their essay and revised their essay based on that feedback. So you see things were copied and pasted. This looks like I deleted this and copied and pasted it up there. So you can see where they moved paragraphs around and they did lots of editing back and forth. And I would encourage students to rewrite that last conclusion paragraph one more time before you turn it in. This can be helpful if you're trying to teach a methodology for writing. For instance, I'm a chemist. I highly encourage students to write their introduction last because how well can you write an introduction to a lab report if you haven't done the lab yet and you need to write out your procedure, you need to do your data analysis, you need to write your conclusions, then you should go back and write your introduction possibly. So there's different ways you might approach writing, and this allows you to pedagogically assess students' process as opposed to just their final product by looking at this. And I'm only showing you one data style that the Forge gives you. It gives you many other ways to look at student interaction and editing processes. It's complicated, so that's why I would like to talk about it, but that's also something you can use for free in this next year if you want to try it out. I mentioned before, one of the other services that we have is our project management tool where you write your books. I mentioned it being a back of the house tool, but I wanted to emphasize that there's a lot more than just writing that goes on with the conductor. This is where you'll manage your authoring teams. This is where you'll invite your administrator to be a read-only access. Maybe you want them to look at your book, but they're not supposed to be editing it. This is where you access the peer reviews that you have that have been submitted. This is where you can access your accessibility checklist. Like, hey, I know I need to hit these checklists and just go through and keep track of that. This is where you can have your team communication, assign tasks, give deadlines, and there are some really great AI co-authoring tools as well. So the AI co-authoring tools, we don't help you write your books. That's not what we do. You write your books however you want to write your books. But there are tedious things that come along with publishing that you never think about. So somebody who's thought, I really think I'd be great at writing a book. I'd love to write a book. Have you considered how long it takes to build an index? That's a long thing to do. Or how long it might take for you to write alt text for every single one of your images, or to assign metadata for all of your pages. What the AI co-author does is those three things. It will generate summaries for your pages, which is really helpful for students and other faculty to have a summary of a page. It'll generate tags for every page, which will auto-generate an index for your book. So if you want a student to say, hey, where did we talk about acids and bases? I can go to the index, see what pages were tagged with acid and base, and then go find those pages. And the third thing it does is it writes a draft of alt text for all of your images. So those three things are AI is quite good at. And I'm not telling you AI does it for you. I'm emphasizing that AI gives you a first pass at it, gets it all done, and then you can go edit it. You could still have the power to edit it. It's not anything that you don't have control over, but it can kind of cut down on that overburden and worksome of, I finished the book, I just want to publish it, but I got to do all these things. Speaking of other interactives that you can embed into your books, I just wanted to emphasize with that conductor that everything I talked about is all in the LibreVerse. So I'm not trying to tell you that you can use this tool and this tool and this tool. I'm saying all of these tools are at LibreTexts because they all interact together. You can embed an adapt homework system question in your textbook. You can embed a textbook in your Canvas. You can embed a Canvas, you can embed an assessment question from adapt. You can put that question right into your Canvas. You can put library books right into your Canvas. You can put H5P into your books. You can put H5P into your adapt homework assessment, get it graded. Or if you want to make it really complicated, you can put an H5P question in your adapt homework, embed that in your textbook, and embed it in your Canvas. All of those things seamlessly work together, and we take care of it for you so that everything interacts nicely. I mentioned we have some other interactives for a lot of libraries. We have PhET simulations, we have interactive protein viewers, we have GeoGebra, which allows for interactive graphing, and CalcPlot 3D. Those are just some examples of interactives that you can embed right into your books. This is a lot of stuff, and it requires a lot of support. So I wanted to just bring up the fact that, yes, we do have that Connections, which is an open forum for finding answers to questions and for asking questions in an open way that can help other faculty. But we do have a full support center as well with our LibreTexts Insight page. Insight is kind of our frequently asked questions. So if you have a frequently asked question, or what I like to say is a smaller little tidbit of information, I need to link my Canvas to Adapt. We have an article right on that with screenshots and little videos here and there. So that's where you can go find a lot of how-tos. If you want to learn about something, I highly recommend checking out our LibreTexts YouTube channel. All of our videos, kind of like today's webinar, are recorded and then posted there as well. So if you can follow along, we do a lot of interactive trainings in there, and you can pause it and do it yourself and follow along. And then at the bottom right corner of any of our service pages or our library pages, you'll see this little blue question mark bubble. This gives you a ability to submit a ticket. So you can use that. We highly recommend that over emailing, because then one of the four of us is going to answer it. And otherwise, if you email just me and I'm on vacation, then you're not going to get an answer for a week. If you submit a ticket, one of the four of us will get it and get back to you. It also gives us the ability to say, to capture who you are, what you were logged in as, what time you did it. So if we know there was a server issue, we could just let you know, oh, at that time there was a server issue. We apologize. It should be good now. It also tells us what web page you were on when that issue happened. Gives you if you have a problem, maybe we can help you out faster. I will also recommend that there is a tool to let you take a screenshot right in there when you submit the ticket. And then we also have a video recorder in our support ticket system as well. So you can click on the support ticket and say, let's record a video. And then you can walk us through what you're doing and what mistakes happened or something that was weird or a bug. So we can reproduce that and assess that question faster. We do have free office hours as well every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific. You just have to go to zoom.libretexts.org. One of the four of us will be there, usually more than one of us, and it's first come, first serve. So if you have a really, really dire need to get this question answered, get there at 8:55. And otherwise, we'll try to get through everybody before the time ends. We do have a full construction guide as well. This is not really a frequently asked question how to. This is more of like a user manual, if I were to say it that way. If you want to learn how the conductor works, you can read through all the pages in the chapter called Conductor. If you want to learn about remixing, you can read the whole entire chapter on remixing. Little personal plug. The first chapter 2 and 3 are actually my PhD thesis work on how to think about the pedagogy behind designing online textbooks. So if you're an instructional designer in here and you're thinking about designing a bunch of cool online materials, maybe you'll learn something from a little bit of there. It's kind of chemistry centric, but it can apply to any multimedia intensive areas. These are all available at academy.libretexts.org. You can go there. That is my area where I help with professional development. And in the faculty resources in the corner, there is our construction guide. And I mentioned that we do have recordings of our webinars. Upcoming webinars are those free monthly webinars there. And we do have access on that launchpad to the Academy Online, which has some free courses for you to just kind of like click through and watch some videos in a curated course type manner. Okay. That is all of our services. So we're going to talk about the how-tos now. And so this is supposed to be a 2-hour event. So I'm going to give you a couple slides real quick. Then we're going to take a 10-minute break just so you can kind of like chill for a minute. But I want to give you an insight into where we're headed in the next hour. And that's what is getting your class an OER textbook. That's what we're going to be talking about. Getting your class an OER textbook and the steps that you go through to do that. And the first thing would be to look at what we already have. Always starting off with something that's existing already. But before we get into looking at what we have, how to find it, how to search for things, I'm going to take that little break. If you do not have a LibreOne verified account, we will verify you right now. If you already have one, let me get this copy link. I'm going to put this into the chat. Hopefully there's not too many. So you can start playing around with it. There is a course map, which is actually, I find to be the very first thing that you should probably try looking at is thinking about what is out there and try to build up that. So if you have that course map, the very first column is basically what units do you teach, what modules do you teach, what sections do you teach, what your lecture topics are. If you can fill out a couple of those, or just take a break too. Just take a break is also a perfectly reasonable thing to do. But if you want to just kind of like poke around and look at things. For those of you who are ready to get your verified instructor account, I'm going to walk through a couple slides. You can feel free to mute me. You're going to see this exact same slide come up again when I'm ready to start talking again. So if you want to mute me, take off your headphones, do something else, go to the bathroom, go ahead and do that. All right. So for those of you who don't have a LibreOne account, the thing you'll do is you'll go to, I'll put it into the chat. There is one.libretexts.org/register, or a shortcut is register.libretexts.org. That will get you to the page that you see there where you'll say, I've already registered, or you click on I want to register. And then the important thing for you to do is either one, use your school's Google or Microsoft. So if you're a Microsoft campus or a Google campus, you can use that. Otherwise, make sure that you use whatever email address is attached to your LMS. So whatever your campus Canvas or your Blackboard username is, your email, make sure you use that, or you will not have the ability to sync your grades books seamlessly back and forth. So you'll want to make sure to use your LMS email when you register. There's a couple of steps that you'll walk through at that point. You'll get an email that says, hey, please verify your email. You'll get a confirmation code. This is pretty similar stuff to signing up for any website. Once you get that code, you'll give us your name, first name and last name. Then you'll have to choose whether or not you're, oh, my little red box moved, whether you're a student or another reader, or if you're an instructor or other educator. I want to emphasize that other educator means anyone who is on your instructional staff should click I'm an instructor or other educator. That is admins, that is secretaries, that is anybody who needs to have instructor access. We only have two types of access, really. It's student, which does not get to view instructor materials, or instructor or educator ones, which can view instructor materials. Once you're there, you can do instructor, grader, question editor, or tester. Grader, question editor, and testers tend to be grad students who are helping out with a course at a large institution. You guys are all at community colleges. You probably don't have any need to use any of those. What you're probably all going to be is instructor, because that's the instructional team, meaning teaching faculty, librarians, instructional designers, technology teams. And basically, if you have access to look at student grades in any course at all, you should put yourself as an instructor. All of your institutions should already be in our list, so you'll go through and choose that. And then you have to choose your time zone. And then you should be all set to go. When you're done with that, do make sure that when you then go on to right here, continue to instructor verification, make sure you put your bio URL in there. This can be I'm gonna give two different rules here. One, today you can put whatever URL you want in there. We're going to verify you. You're here. You're an instructor if you're here, so you can just put whatever URL you want in there. It does have to exist. Second, if you're helping someone else in the future do this, this should be a publicly available website that we can click on and find out who you are. Please don't give us some URL to I need to log in as a user of your campus's website in order to find this web page. Give us a publicly available site that has your name, ideally one with your email address on it, so we can verify you are. We don't tend to verify anybody that's not at a .edu address, so they needs to have that. And then if you don't have that, or something, your school doesn't publicly say that you exist there, maybe you're an adjunct faculty, and you have an email address, but there's nowhere publicly that you can see, you can write that additional information there to help us to find it out. Remember, this is a form that you're filling out that one of the four of us is going to read. We're going to read it. It's not automated. So please make our lives easier. The faster we can read it, the faster we get done. When you're done, you'll get the status pending one. And at this workshop, just drop your email address in the chat, or you can directly message to Jennifer, who's in the room. She and I are going to spend the next few minutes of this break verifying as many people as we can before I return. Okay. And I'm going to take a break from talking for a few minutes. Oh, question real quick. Jess Wen, I think it was it.
Yeah, Justin, I'm not sure, maybe I missed out. So I was just kind of completing the registration, and I just wanted to be sure, what do I select in applications and special libraries?
It should by default give you everything in the libraries. It might, if you want access to the global one. So this is access for you to publish things in. So if you need access to publish something in the global library or the Spanish library, then feel free to check those boxes. If you need access to Jupyter, I think that's one that you choose as well. So these are the just other libraries that aren't very commonly used. Feel free to select whichever ones you want. If you make the wrong choice, email us later. We can give you access if you didn't. But I would not recommend, don't unselect anything. Leave it at least as whatever is selected.
Okay, and if I don't select anything, I just leave it empty. Is that okay?
I think when you come up, I think there should be already pre-selected ones, or there's a box at the top that says choose general libraries.
Okay, I'm going to try that. Okay, thank you.
I just verified your account. You're good to go.
Oh, okay, thank you so much.
All right, I'm going to take a quick break from talking, and I'll be back. I said 10 minutes, so we'll probably just do another 4 minutes. I know that's a little bit longer, but we'll do till 10 after, and we'll get back here. Or did you already do it? Okay. All right, so I'm going to pick up where we left off, which was with trying to go about getting an OER textbook for your class. Step one is thinking about what we already have, and that will be in our LibreTexts Commons as we're going to start that. But I want to emphasize to you that there really is a step zero here, which I hinted at, which is making a textbook map for your course. So step one should be for you to outline what you're teaching in your class and then trying to go out there and explore what sorts of things you want to use that are OER. So I have a link. I think I put it in the chat, but if not, I'm going to put it in the chat again. This is just a very simple Google Doc that you can make a copy of when you click that link. And it just has units, modules, lecture topics, or maybe learning objectives for your class, a place for you to say, hey, this is where I found this, or make notes, a description of that, and a link to that OER. Technically, you don't need to use LibreTexts for all your OER. In fact, at this point, I'm going to tell you, you shouldn't have to restrict yourself to just finding things on LibreTexts. Go find things. You might already have good things in your course that exist. Find the thing that's going to help you the most. If you make a whole lecture note or a set of lectures in this spreadsheet, I recommend that you start by filling it out not with week one, but start with whatever thing you happen to care a lot about teaching well that maybe your current book doesn't teach the way you want. Start off with your pain points. Address your pain points and try to find some good OER out there. The reason I recommend this is if you find a resource out there that teaches one weird little niche topic the way that you happen to like it, that author probably teaches the other things the way you like it too. So finding the person who maybe matches up with you there can help you to find other resources more quickly. Things and other things, honestly, you frequently don't care about. I rarely care that much about how somebody teaches one aspect of chemistry because I think it's kind of just mundane and it's like turn the crank type of stuff. What I really care an awful lot about how you teach geometry. So I'm going to be caring a lot about what that is going to look like because I have a specific way that I like to approach it. So I do like you to think about that. And another place where you can go, I'm gonna hit on this a couple times because I'm trying to get people to use it as much as possible. There are areas for each of our libraries in our forum as well. We post what books have just been published, what new harvesting requests we have, and you can also ask, hey, who's using a book that teaches this really well? So feel free to use that as a resource that goes beyond just your little circle of people there too. And we have a lot of other support there. Just as a quick note, Connections is for verified instructors only, so the only verified instructors can post there, but it is a publicly facing forum. But if you're worried about having your students go find you asking questions about how to teach, that's understandable. We do have a members only tag, so you can restrict it to only members being able to see it, so that would be instructors only. Or you can post anonymously. So you can also post anonymously if you just want to ask a question and you don't want to say who it is. So I just want to make sure you know. Feel free to use it even if you don't really want your name out there. And if you also are looking for collaborators, if you're saying, I'd love to author a book, but I really only want to author half a book because I don't have time to write a whole book. Maybe you want to find somebody. We've got a lot of people who've already asked for collaborators in different areas, and that QR code will take you there, or just click on the Seeking Collaborators at the very bottom of your connections form here. Okay. All right. Let's think about content. Remember, each of the libraries is broken apart into campus bookshelves, and learning objects. So let's go dive into how to find a book to start with. That campus bookshelf, as a reminder, is where you'd find basically specialized remixes, custom books for one professor in one class. And bookshelves is where you're going to find traditional standalone books. So if you're going to start searching for books, we're going to take a look at by the way, I did say unpublished ones are not there. We're going to take a look at how you can find things in different areas. So I'm just going to dive into, let's go with chemistry because I love chemistry. You're going to see a lot more on my screen than your screen because I have access to some other hidden areas. But I'm going to go into the bookshelves. So when you're in the bookshelves, then you'll see subdisciplines like general chemistry, organic chemistry, and whatnot. And then if you go into those, you might find other disciplines underneath there. I like to point out the one with the rocket ship back to the beginning, the biggest of our libraries, which is humanities. The humanities library bookshelves are much more complicated than chemistry because they cover everything from art to composition to dance, history, music, literature, photography, theater, film, textiles. All of these things are areas that are all within humanities. And then once you go into, let's say, composition, you might have sub bookshelves on grammar, introductory composition, advanced composition. So the bookshelves are like going into a library and knowing the Dewey Decimal System. Yep, it'll help you. You can get to where you need to go, but I don't even know if librarians teach looking up books by Dewey Decimal System anymore, or if they just say, here's a website you can search for. So let's talk about searching. If you're on a library itself, you can search that library. So you can search, let's say, for Shakespeare. If I search Shakespeare in the humanities library, I get a ton of results, okay? But like I mentioned before in the Commons, I might want to limit my location to just the bookshelves, not the campus modified, remixed, copied over and over again books, not the 400 of those. I just want to look in the 500 books that are just in that bookshelves because it's much more likely.
Criticized for guacamole.
What? Oh, sorry about that. So then you can find that, oh, here's the books that are all, these are pages that are in this book on that topic. Remember, we're searching by topic right now. We're not searching by book. The Commons is great for finding books. We're searching who teaches this subject well that I like. So now I can say, okay, well, there's a lot of people talking about Shakespeare, some of them from a history standpoint, some of them from language standpoint, some of them from theater standpoint, some of them from a literature standpoint. So this allows you to go in and take a look at what other sources are in here. So when someone asks me, well, why does chemistry get its own library, but art doesn't? Well, if somebody's teaching a class that they can remix their own textbook, humanities faculty are very often going to be pulling things from art and literature and English. So the humanities library ends up being remixed in many, many interesting ways. So it makes sense to keep them all in one library. It makes it really easy to find all those other resources that you might want. So this is a way you can find it. Remember, I chose location, and I chose the location being the bookshelf. So that's not the campus bookshelf, but the bookshelf. Otherwise, you're going to get a lot of duplicate things. That works really great if you know where in our bookshelves you're going to find something. I'm going to teach you guys another trick that I find to be very useful. If you're in Google, I don't know how many people know this one, but if I were to search for, let's see, let's go natural medicines. And I want to look for natural medicines. Natural medicines is difficult because I might find it in the health library. I might find it in the biology library. I might find it in the chemistry library. There's a lot of places. I might even find it in the social work library. If you're a public health professor, I don't need to tell you how difficult it is to find all the different types of resources that might go into that class. But I do know I want to look for them only in the site LibreTexts.org. You might not know this trick of Google. If you just end any search with site : and then that URL, domain name, it will only return results from that website. So here I can look at medicine. I can look at things from the chemistry library, the social sciences library, the biology library. So if you're looking for something that is not necessarily easy to simplify into just looking in one library, I recommend using Google. They're going to build a better search engine than we're ever going to have. I'm just going to say that out loud. So why not have them search all of our libraries at once? And you might even find H5Ps that pop up from our studio and some other things too. So that can be a nice little trick that you can use in order to search for things. Okay. All right. Obviously, it's not going to search the workbench. So I'm just letting you know that is one of the big things that comes about from publishing. So publishing moves something from a private, no one can find it, Google can't find it, no one else can find it, into the public areas, whether it's going to be the campus bookshelf, bookshelves, or learning objects. And I want to reiterate, there is no functional difference between a published book and an unpublished book. You can still edit them, you can still modify them, you can still revamp them. All of those are there. You'll know if you're looking at a book that's published or not, though, because it will have a page restriction of being public or semi-private or, say, private in some way. And you'll get all these extra things once your book is public. You'll be able to access a PDF of the full book or the full chapter, not just a single page. We don't compile full books until they're published. You can download the LMS cartridge, the course cartridge, once it's published. You can buy a print copy only once it's public. And then you can submit adoption reports, and you can look at your conductor either way. So there are things that can be done only for published books. And honestly, a lot of people start books and never finish them. So we don't spend the resources making PDFs or making downloadable course cartridges files unless someone can actually finish the book. So those tools aren't available until you say, yes, this book is good enough for it to be out there. Great. So now we've talked about searching the LibreTexts Commons, searching library, all of LibreTexts in general. I want to talk a little bit about OER books and licensing for a minute. Ooh, I got an extra page there. Because I mentioned those things don't need to be LibreTexts, right? So I said, if you found something that's an OER source that you really like, then we can use it. It is OER licensed. We are not a publishing company. We're not just a publishing company. We are also a library. And you know what? You can go to your local library and find a bunch of different books, right? There's no limit to the number of libraries that can have a copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. Same thing for OER, but even better for OER. If a book is licensed with an OER license, a Creative Commons license of some sort, you can ask us to put it in our library, and we will bring it into the LibreTexts library. That's what we call harvesting. So let's take a look at, I'm skipping over this because I actually did this live. I always have a backup in case things go wrong. So you'll see the site.libretext there. So for the licensing, we can bring books in that are OER licensed into our library. And the reason you might want to do this is because we have the power of remixing in LibreTexts. You can take a section from here and a section from here, and you can write your book over here, and you can modify this book. You can edit that book's text. You can't do that if the book's not in LibreTexts. So we will bring that book into LibreTexts for you so you can remix it with all of our other stuff. That's the goal of it. We're not doing it because we're stealing it. We're doing it because that's what OER is meant to do. In fact, you'll notice that we have OpenStax books inside of our chemistry library. We have all the OpenStax books in our library. We have a good working relationship with OpenStax. They have a different model than we do. We are a professors build remixes of customized material for themselves model. They have basically a publisher model where they get authoring teams, reviewers, peer reviewers, and they come out with editions. So theirs is much like the older version of a publishing for-profit model, but it's OER. We have a model that says, take and mix however you want to make something that fits your class. Different models. I'm not going to say anything bad about them. They're good people. I've worked with them many times. We just have different models and how we think that instructors enjoy using OER. Some examples of ways that you can remix, just to give you an idea. If you go in here and you see OpenStax, obviously that's from OpenStax. Down here, this ChemPrime by Moore et al. That's a book that I authored with my authoring team. My PI in my graduate school was Professor Moore. So that ChemPrime book is authored by the people that are in parentheses there. This is all original content. Over here are the map. Maps are actually one of the easiest ways to get a professor to move into OER. If you owe a chemistry professor who loves their book and doesn't want to move to OER because they already have their homework set, they already have their PowerPoint slides, they already have their tests banks written, they already said, this is how my course is organized. I don't want to reorganize my course for a new book. What you can do very easily is move to a map of that book. So what the map of a molecular approach by Tro is, Tro's book, A Molecular Approach, for many years was the #1 textbook out there for chemistry. I used it when I taught chemistry a few times. It's a great book, but it's not free and it's very expensive. So we have a book here that is a map of Tro, which means it is the same titles, the same chapter numbers, the same section numbers, but it is not Tro's textbook. It is our textbook. We remixed all of our other books into a map of Tro's book. That's the easiest way to move into ZTC world from a publisher model world. If you have a textbook that has section numbers that are already in your syllabus and it says, tonight, please read sections 5.5 and 5.6. Well, then make a book that has the exact same chapter numbers in the same order with the same titles. It's important to note that what is copyrightable is the content, not the organization of the content. Tables of contents are not copyrightable. That is not intellectual property that can be copyrighted. Those are freely available. That's how you organize something that is not a part of the content, the creative development. I'm not going to say whether I agree with that legally, but that is legally what it is. So you can move things around and you can remap them however you want to, and you can have the same table of contents as an existing book. So anytime you see a map, this is not Brown's book. This is a map of Brown's book. This is not Tro's book. It's a map of Tro's book. This is a book by Moore, and this is a book by OpenStack's team, and this is a book that we put together. This also gives you the ability to remix books in a way that makes more intuitive sense to your students and reduces their cognitive load. So for instance, this professor teaches Chemistry 305, and they remixed their book to say, Exam 1 is going to cover everything in Unit 1. No asking me what's on Chapter 1 or what's on first exam. It's everything that's in Unit 1. She made a custom textbook that only has the pages that are on that exam. So how many exams does she have? She has 5 of them. And what's on those exams? The things that are in each of those 5 units that she made by scratch. So this is an example of making a syllabus-centric remix of a textbook. I'm going to make a textbook for my class that directly follows exactly the way my assessment is to reduce the cognitive load for my students. And this is why we do allow for harvesting to bring other books in. So I just walked through those 4 different examples of books. How does this get handled in LibreTexts? This is an important question because the first thing that should probably pop up in your head is, oh my gosh, how are we going to keep track of who wrote whose stuff? If I'm going to have a whole bunch of books out there that are all from different people, I need to keep track of my sources. I need to have a bibliography. No, you don't. LibreTexts does it for you. At the bottom of every single page in LibreTexts says, this page is this page. It's 1.4. It's taking measurements. It has this license according to whoever remixed it, and this is the team of people who remixed it. And it takes material from 2.1 taking measurements by Henry Agnew with this license. So it tells you exactly not only who made the remix, so who made the content map, but also if there's content from somewhere else, who it is, and it references it, and it gives you links to the other part. So that's one you can do that. 2, you can set the author and the license for your page. So if your page is your own content, then you can set the licensing there on that summary at the top. You can set the license and the license version right at the top of that page when you author it yourself. In addition, when you click that request to publish button there, then we will go and take a look at all of your pages. You should tell us on that page what your license is for your whole book as a whole, because your book as a big, huge collection is also has a specific OER license. Your name, whoever should be on the authoring list, and your primary institution gets put into there. And lastly, I wanted to just mention that all of that will give your attribution at the bottom of the page, your attribution at the top of the page, your attribution to everybody else's work that you used, and it will have all of these things taken care of for you when you get time of publishing. One thing I want to emphasize is this is a process that for our team is much easier for us to do it once at the very end, once it's done. So we ask that you don't worry about licensing until you're ready for it to go public. And then as long as you author it with our remixer, then we will take care of that for you. So to answer that question about whether or not you need to set the license for each page, we also have a mechanism where we allow those tags at the top of the page, which are these gray box ones up here. Whenever you change any of those, it will ask you, do you want to apply this to all subpages? So at the very end of your book, go to your very, very top level of your book, the title page book, set your preferences and say, yes, apply to every subpage, and it will automatically apply to all of them. Another reason why you do this at the end of the process, not halfway through the process. So you can set all those things at once. All right. So I also want to point out here in the middle, you might see this extra little thing. Notice that this page, transcluding and reusing, is actually a combination of 2 different other pages. Because as far as I know, LibreTexts is the only platform out there that allows you to remix on a paragraph by paragraph level. And I'll show you an example of what that looks like in a few minutes after I show you how you get content into here. But just to let you know, we can even keep track of your licensing on a paragraph by paragraph level and allow people to look at those. So now that you've heard all about remixing, finding books, making your textbook map, maybe making a plan for what you're going to do for your class, let's talk about if you want to author something and the ways that you can author something. So there's really 5 mechanisms that we have seen being used the most. And they're kind of tied. So number 1 and number 3 are either students writing raw content from scratch, maybe as an extra credit assignment, something like that. Number 3 is if you're a faculty member and you're going to write raw content from scratch. I will tell you, number 3 is the least likely of these to succeed. Just to let you know. Many people say they want to write a book. They start to write a book, but something else always gets in the way and it gets pushed back until they never get the book written. We all have been there. There's no shame in that. But I want to just emphasize that's usually the hurdle. One of the things that can be helpful is if you tie your writing to your teaching. So if you have students write things and then you give them revisions on that, then you are also collaborating with them. So number 2 is student integration of existing content outside the LibreTexts platform. So this would be if you teach something maybe that has to do with policy or government or conservation, all of these things that change on a year-to-year basis. I teach chemistry. Things rarely change on the very, very basic level, but a lot of these fields change a lot. So maybe you want to have students writing things for assignments where they bring in new case studies or they bring in new data or they rewrite this paragraph or they rewrite something from outside. Number 4, and faculty can also do that, right? But again, that's not going to get done as fast unless it's tied to some deadlines you have. The best one that I really like is number 5, which is faculty and students re-editing of content that already exists on LibreTexts, maybe with new outside data, maybe with collaborations. And then those students and faculty can rewrite revisions over again as part of an assignment in the class. And then that material becomes your book for next semester. Maybe it replaces section 3. Maybe it replaces one homework problem. This is actually called open pedagogy, when you have students and faculty co-writing, co-authoring instructional materials to be used by future students. There's a lot of research out there into why this is a really great educational practice for going against fighting about copyright. It also motivates students more because what they're going to be doing isn't just seen by the professor, it's also being seen by their fellow students who are going to take the class next semester. Sorry, got distracted for a second. So then you can also get people to rewrite whole entire chapters that way. A lot of our Wikipedia, a lot of our ChemWiki, the original ChemWiki from UC Davis, was written by Delmar Larson's Delmar Larson's students using open pedagogy in his classrooms before open pedagogy was even a thing. So we've loved this mechanism for a super long time. For the question about Wikipedia content, it depends on the content and how it's licensed, but technically we can. If it's something that Wikipedia is going to keep up to date, then you can definitely just link out to it. That's a pretty reliable secondary source. But you can also bring things in and just cite it too. Great. So although I said that it doesn't need to be LibreTexts, it really kind of does, because if you want to use those things and have them embed into your LMS and to have printable copies of things, then you really do want to bring those materials from outside of LibreTexts into LibreTexts so you can remix them into a book, and then everything is operational smoothly for your students. And that involves formats, harvesting, and remixing. So I'm going to go and talk now because this is really where the conversation divides itself between adopters and authors. Because at step 3, you're going to start to, if you're an author, think about how you're going to write your book, what pages you're going to write, what formats you're going to write it in, how you're going to remix material into your book or make from your own pages. And if you're adopting, then you want to start, honestly, with remixing. So this is where the big crux of it is. Remixing a book is so easy that there's zero reason for you not to do it. I have frequently had people tell me for 2 years they've been thinking about remixing a book to make their nice little custom textbook, and they've waited until they decided that they were going to finally do it. And then I show them how to do it, and 20 minutes later I get an email that says, I finished my book for next semester. I can't believe it was only 20 minutes. I wasted so much time worrying about how large this was going to be. Because I'll show you, it's really just a drag and drop exercise. And if you make that little map of what books you like, you can get through it pretty easy. Because the predominant way you might want to think about remixing is, number 1, choose a book that's good enough, and then use the remixer to delete the pages you don't want. That is the first step to going ZTC in your class, because your goal is not to find a perfect book. Your goal is to find a book that's as good as the one you are currently requiring students to pay for. Because why would you make them pay for a book that's not perfect when you can give them a book that's not perfect for free? That's kind of the starting point. And you can remix that book when remixing really just means take a copy of that book and just delete the things you don't want. There's always some things that you don't want. I hate to tell students, please read all of chapter 5, but ignore 5.3. We're not going to cover 5.3. Well, then why do I have it in my book? Let's just get rid of that chapter, that section. So remixing is really something that I think is for both of those. This is what our current remixer looks like. We're revamping it to make it a little even easier to use, but it's already really easy to use. You can choose any library that you want on the left-hand side. I told you there's campus bookshelves and bookshelves. The business library actually doesn't have any learning objects. So if you're wondering where that is, it would show up here if it had one. Then you go and you can just find your book in the bookshelf or the campus bookshelf and then drag it over to the right-hand side, drag and drop every page you want according to the course map that you made in your Excel spreadsheet. And then your book is done. Click Save to Server. You have a copy of a book. Done. If your stuff is not in LibreTexts, but you want it to be in LibreTexts, so this can be done by just harvesting. So we have an integration harvesting. Preeti is our director of harvesting and integration. She can take stuff that you've written in your class. So it doesn't even have to be OER from somewhere else. If you're really willing to release it with a Creative Commons license, then we will take that material. We can take it that you written it in Scratch, whether maybe it's in a PDF, maybe it's in a common cartridge file, maybe it's in a Google Doc, maybe it's in a Word document, maybe it's in LaTeX. We have the ability to take any of those documents and harvest them and integrate them into our libraries. That is a service that will cost you absolutely $0. Okay. So if you are towards the end of your career and you have basically a whole textbook worth of materials that you don't want to see die, have us harvest them and put them into our library so other people can remix them and use them in their classes. I would say that is the biggest group of people that I see that want to use LibreTexts harvesting is the people who have written things and don't want them to go away. And I totally love that. I'm all for it. But the group of people that I really would like to emphasize should listen to me about this is the faculty who are new. Because if you start with a LibreTexts textbook that is not necessarily something you like, it allows you to make materials in that textbook. You know what? After section 2.2, I really wish that I had one more explainer about this extra topic. Do it in LibreTexts now. That way it lives for your whole entire career and you can keep revamping it over and over again. Because what I find younger faculty do is say, I'm just going to write this up in Google Docs real quick, and then I'm just going to print it and then hand it out in class. Okay, that's not a bad thing to do. I'm not saying that's a bad thing to do, but why not just put it in your textbook? If you want it in your textbook, put it in your textbook. Question from Jeff?
Yeah, if you import something like that and they revise what they've got, do you automatically inherit the revisions? Are these links live?
So if you harvest something from outside LibreTexts, you get a snapshot of it at that moment when it gets brought into LibreTexts. So like if OpenStax were to update that OpenStax book that you saw, we won't get an update from that. If you remix something from within LibreTexts, so the author authored it on LibreTexts, then depending on how you remix it into your book, there are ways that it will automatically propagate into your book. The default actually is for it to automatically propagate, but you can choose to what we call fork and then make that a separate copy. It's up to you. It's up to you, the remixer. But if the author is not authoring on LibreTexts, then they don't usually edit LibreTexts.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Which is another reason why I would like to say, if you're thinking of authoring a textbook and you're trying to figure out what platform you want to host it on, I would recommend hosting it on LibreTexts, because then any of the changes you make will percolate out to whoever adopted your book. That is not the case in many other OER platforms for publishing that might exist out there. I won't mention any names. So if you do want to do that, that little blue circle in the bottom right-hand corner of every page or in the control panel of your conductor page, there is a harvesting request button. You click that, you fill it all out, you tell us what the license is, where it's located, and then we will go take it and look at it and bring it in. As a LibreNet member, you do have priority access to the harvesting. The harvesting queue is quite long, so we can't make any guarantees about how fast we'll get that harvested. But if you give us enough advance notice before you need it, then that's better for everybody. Otherwise, you can pay to expedite harvesting, but it is a free service that we provide. If you put it in now, we can have it by fall. Usually, that's not a big deal. Preeti runs a very good team. So once that's in LibreTexts, then you can remix it. So we'll usually take those harvest requests of other people's work and we'll put them into the bookshelf. Once they're in the bookshelf, then you go ahead and remix them elsewhere. Okay. Once they're in there, again, that reducing cognitive load. This allows you to take other resources that are out there that are OER, put them into your book so they can be used by students seamlessly. No more linking to this page, linking to this book, linking to that resource. Put them all in LibreTexts, make one book out of it, remix it, and you're done. So here's where things can split off a little bit. If you are authoring something, or you've decided that, yes, I'm going to remix, even though I'm going to be an adopter, then you start off with the conductor. That's where you start to do anything. Typically, I like to say, if you want to do something in LibreTexts, you want to do it in the conductor. Conductor is where we did doing. So you'll go there, click on the rocket ship, click on the conductor. At the top of the conductor is a big, huge thing that says Create Conductor Project. You click on Create a Conductor Project, and there'll be another green button with a plus sign that says Create Book. That is the step for starting off how to make a book. Once you get your LibreTexts verified instructor. I have exercise 2.3, but that's just the next exercise you could do. So if you're following along at home. Jeff mentioned earlier, do things propagate? When you remix a page from somewhere else into your book, it will come over with this little icon here. I'm going to zoom in so you can see it. It looks like a node with a fork in the road. This is a common symbol you'll know if you happen to do anything with coding or you write computer science type stuff. So those people will be like, I know exactly what that means. If you don't know it, it basically means at this point, I'm going to make 2 copies. And those copies are going to be separate from each other at that point. We call that forking. We didn't make it up. That's what it is called in all of computer science. You're going to fork that. So if you click this button, it will say, oh, wait, would you like to fork this page? Reasons that we make the default to not fork is that way any changes to that page will propagate into your book. So if you know a page is there and you just want to have whatever updates that person makes, cool, I'll just have those updates. And then if you do say, however, I would like to modify this page, then you need to fork it because you're going to change that page. It's OER. As long as it's not a non-derivatives page, you can fork it and then you can modify it. And I'll show you what that looks like in a second. So for instance, down at the bottom, this page actually has paragraphs from 2 different areas. You can't do that 2 different areas, 2 different paragraph content unless you fork the page. So this one has been forked and it no longer has that icon because it is no longer a transcluded page. Transcluding is what we call it before it gets forked. Here's what that toggle block level attribution looks like. So if I click that, each paragraph on the page will get highlighted with a different color based on who the original author is. So when I told you we take care of all the licensing and attribution for you, this is what it looks like. You click on that toggle block level attributions. If there's no color on it, that means the author of the page wrote it. If there's color on it and you hover your mouse over it, it will tell you where that paragraph came from. So you can see every single paragraph, who the original author was, what the original source was, what the original license says. And if it doesn't have any highlighting, that means the author of that page authored it. Okay, last, if you are adopting, this is where I would say keep remixing and forking as you feel like it. Get a book together, make it all transcluded, so no forking. And as the semester goes, if you decide next semester, I really want to change this, I didn't like the way that this went, I want a better image or I want a better paragraph here, then you can fork just that page and modify it. This is a way for you to start off as mostly adopting, but be able to really quickly and easily modify things as you need to do it. All right, so that's the way I recommend for people who are thinking, I just want to adopt. Well, you probably do, but maybe sometime you might want to modify things a little bit, or maybe you want to put your worksheets straight into LibreTexts. Authoring, at this point, you're thinking, how do I publish this? So in the conductor, if it's a doing thing, then you're going to do that. There's going to be a button right here with the open project that is the publishing. You request to publish it. When you request to publish it, there is a whole list of things that you need to do. We do not have a peer review team. So if you want it peer reviewed, then you have to invite those people into your book to go ahead and review it for you. We are 3 chemists and a librarian. So if you write a chemistry book, we might read through parts of it. But other than that, you don't want us to read through your books, probably. But you can invite people with the managing team button and assign them tasks to review things if you'd like to have input. If it's just for your class, then you can go ahead and do whatever you want. And this is where you can access those AI co-author tools, because one of the things that we're going to ask you is, have you checked to make sure all of your pages are accessible? Have you made thumbnails for it? Have you made summaries for it? All these little tedious things that need to get done, you're going to have to say, yes, I did it. Yes, I did it. Yes, I did it. Don't lie to us, because anything you don't do, we're just not going to, we won't publish your book. We don't remediate it too much for you. So that's where the AI co-author comes in. You can have it go through and magically add your alt text for you. And then we have an accessibility checker as well. I'm just skipping through a couple of these things. Because I want to go to a page and look at it with you. So I'm going to go into my book. I don't even know what the revision history is going to look like for this page, because it's the one I always use. What chemists do. So here's a copy of the page. Here, you can see that this is the authoring team tag. The way you can download it, print it at the bottom. There is no toggle group level attributions, because this is a book that's entirely made of stuff that we wrote. There is no remixing from other places in this book. And when I'm accessing the editor, I said that there was an accessibility checklist inside of the conductor, but in addition to accessibility checklist, you need to be able to check every single page. So we do have a built-in accessibility checker. So over here are some fancy little tools that you don't see on most devices. This circle right there allows you to embed and adapt homework question into your textbook. And this one right here lets you embed an H5P into your book. Or this one here is the one I really care about right now, which is our accessibility checker, which you can check for these things by default, or you can also check the color contrast, the labels, and the abbreviations. We always recommend doing the default, because that will get you to the WCAG standards that you need to have. And it will go through your page and it will find any images. This one, alt text, is too long. So you can just choose to fix it, or you can go on and look at the next error. Alt text was too long. So this will check your headers, make sure your headers are good, make sure your tables are good, make sure your captions are good, and make sure that you have all your alt text. So those sorts of things can go through, and we have an automated way to do that right inside of our editor. So at that point, I think you're exhausted. I know my voice is. So I wanted to wrap this up before the 2-hour mark and say, make sure that you are registered. If you're not registered, send us a message. With your registration, you will get a newsletter every month that has upcoming events. We have a free monthly webinar for you to sit in on every third Thursday. On the first Friday of every month, we give a sneak peek into cool things that we're working on. That'll be in the newsletter. That's not recorded, because it's just us getting some feedback on some fun things. LibreNet members get first access to trying new technologies. So if you're into doing new cool stuff with your classes, go to the first Friday, see what fun things are happening, and volunteer to try out and pilot some new fun things in your class. Make sure you go to our LibreTexts on YouTube, because we've got a lot of recordings of videos like this. And you can follow us on social media. I would also say you can volunteer. That's also in our connections. There's an area for volunteers. We love to have people say, hey, I would love to help out looking at this or that, or reading through text, or whatever you want to do. Curating, we're always looking for help with that. And then I do want to say, this summer we do have a LibreFest that is free for LibreNet members. It's a virtual workshop for a whole week where I go through, a lot of people work with me on this. You do about an hour training that's very hands-on. Like, let's actually build a remix. Let's actually build a course and adapt. Let's actually build an assignment in the Forge. So I recommend that you look for those dates in your newsletter. It'll be out in the next newsletter. And reserve that whole week and just say, I want to revamp my course. I don't know when I'm going to do it. Do it that week, because that week you can attend whichever ones you want to. Don't attend the sessions you don't want to, and spend any time you want to between sessions to work on your book. Many people will have gotten their whole book and their adapt homework set all ready to go just by attending LibreFest. So I would definitely recommend that. With that, I think we will cancel or stop the recording, and I can take any questions for a few minutes.